Hello and welcome to London for the FullTiltPoker.net $1 million cash game. It is of course the 4th series, and so far the chips have been flying around the table. We're hoping for much more of the same in this show as well, as we hand you straight up to your commentators.
It's the FullTiltPoker.net $1 million cash game. I'm David Tuckman alongside Gary Jones. Button in front of Phil Ivey. He's our big winner today so far, up $67,900. And it folds around to durrrr. Actually, no. Pardon me. How about Chris Ferguson? Excuse me. He's going to raise us up to 1,800 with the ace-10 of clubs.
Well, he's been so quiet so far today. I'm not surprised you didn't see him.
I forgot he was there.
Looks like he's going to get a call from Phil.
Now, Phil calling on the button. He has to know he's behind.
Oh, he does. He's calling because he's got position. He's got half a hand.
I mean, does he just think that he can outplay Chris Ferguson?
He thinks that if there's nothing on the board for Chris, he's likely to be able to take it away from him.
Cool.
Well, Feldman's going to call as well.
3 players.
And when you get an early position raise from somebody like Chris Ferguson, pocket 6 is there. It makes the exact hand you want, right?
Exactly.
7 queen.
Not now, but 5 hours.
Well, no extra pairs for anyone, but there are 2 clubs for Chris.
I mean, I'm not terrible.
Yeah, nothing there for Ivey, but it's not a bad flop for Andrew Feldman either. He flops 2 pair.
Yeah, only really a queen he's likely to be worried about here. Of course, you could also be worried about the fact that Chris Ferguson's raised out of first position. He could have any kind of pair.
Yeah, obviously Chris Ferguson could have a big pair in his hand, but at the same time you wouldn't put him on a 7. And you think, okay, well there's only one overcard out there to my 6s.
But if he calls, he's going to be out of position. He doesn't know what's going to come on the turn in the river. And even if he is winning, a queen would put him behind as well.
There's lots of action.
And for the people at home wondering, what is Ivey calling with? Well, actually, for me, what is Ivey calling with?
Ivey's basically doing what we call floating one. He's calling with position. He wants to see what the reaction is from Chris on the turn. He knows there's quite a few hands that he could be betting with there. And he's also calling to catch a jack, which is particularly fortunate for him. All he could actually catch there was a jack that wasn't a club.
I mean, the people at home, it probably looks like Phil Ivey just got lucky here. But let's say a deuce fell on the turn, deuce of diamond, something like that. Was Ivey going to raise and take it away?
That's what he's going to be trying to do. I think Chris might check call on the turn, or he might even fire again. Here comes Chris again.
Well, Chris doesn't play many hands, but when he plays hard. And he's going to try to represent, remember, he raised under the gun, so he's going to try to represent that big pocket pair.
Phil, who's caught a card, might think it's a bad card almost for him because it might keep him involved. Another fire from Chris here. You know, Phil's got to know all he's really beating in this spot is a bluff. And this is Chris Ferguson. He doesn't bluff that often out of first position. But
Raise. 30,000.
Phil Ivey's going to see where he's at. Ferguson, by the way, has picked up more outs. He could catch a king as well now. Ivey raises it up to $30,000. Now, we've seen Ivey bluff a few times, but the table has only seen Ivey turn over the goods. And if we rewind this back at last season, when Ivey won a huge monster pot against Chris Ferguson, how much of that is going on in Chris Ferguson's head?
probably an awful lot.
Ferguson always deliberate about every decision he makes at the poker table, obviously thinking this one through. If he calls 20,000 here, what happens on the river? Andrew Feldman watching on. Pot is 55,100. Action on Chris Ferguson.
I think he could do anything of all three plays in this spot.
Phil Ivey never taking his eyes off Chris Ferguson.
Well, here's the big replay from Chris Ferguson.
And he's going to...
For those that couldn't see him, I think there's some blacks in there as well. There are two blacks at the bottom. That is a re-raise of 60,000 more.
And the one thing about Chris Ferguson, he doesn't play many hands, but the ones he plays them strong. He's playing this like he has aces.
That's exactly what he's doing. He's playing it as if he's got aces. He's trying to maneuver Phil off a queen. As it happens, he's trying to manoeuvre Phil off a jack, but he thinks Phil's probably got a queen in this spot. I think it would be an inspirational call if Phil can make this one. I can't see how we can think his jack's good.
I mean, we've seen Ivey make great calls against Dwan, against Antonius, but can he do this against Ferguson?
I think he'd have to push. I don't think he can make a call.
Pass.
He lays it down.
And look at that.
Wow, Phil gets out the way, and Chris plays that one some real heart. Fantastic play by Chris. And that puts him up over 80,000. Couple of fantastic removes by Chris Ferguson.
Like that Eurolink site went bust.
Button in front of our big chip leader right now. Well, actually, shouldn't the chip leader, but our big winner, Chris Ferguson. Action on Matusow the mouth.
He's been remarkably quiet with his chips so far today. Maybe not as quiet as, say, Andrew Feldman, but...
Did you play on when you used to play Primo?
I got fucked big time.
Well, you don't get an award for winning the most pots. You just want to win the big pots.
Cool.
Very true.
Yeah,
I won money and...
Way. We've got a raise from Patrick Antonius, a call from Andrew Feldman, and sitting on the button.
Well, I think Patrick trying to take advantage of the fact that Phil Ivey's not at the table right now. Trying to kind of be the table captain, but it's not going to work in this case. Andrew Feldman calls, and here's the re-raise from Chris Ferguson.
Doesn't look like a very big re-raise.
9,000 total.
That might be enough.
Eurolink tells me 183.
9,000 total. Pass.
The whole theory, talk softly, carry a big stick. Chris Ferguson does that. I don't think he hasn't said a word today.
Cool.
Cool.
Well, Patrick Antonius has decided to call. Calling a re-raise from Chris Ferguson. Treading dangerous ground.
Well, both players are fairly deep. Antonius started this pot with 317,000 chips. Ferguson with 187,000 chips.
What kind of indication?
I'd say $317,000 is pretty deep.
Yeah, exactly. Both players are deep, so maybe Antonius feels like he can win a big pot off Ferguson. Feldman, though, just over 100,000. I'm not sure if he's deep enough to call this, and he decides not to. He's going to throw this away, and we're going to see it heads up between Antonius and Ferguson.
Here comes the flop.
King 7-4.
King 7-4 with no suits. It's a pretty good flop here for Chris.
Maybe Alan Cunningham should ask Ferguson how to flop these kind of hands, because Chris Ferguson can do no wrong today. He's in there with Big Slick, and he flops top pair, top kicker, and he's got nothing to worry about whatsoever. And he's going to put out a nice size bet there.
15,000 maybe?
Give or take one for sure.
14,000.
14,000 over to Antonius, and he's got no hand, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything, does it?
No, it doesn't mean he's going to throw it away straight away. If he gives Chris a hand like tens, jacks, maybe queens, does he think he can get Chris to lay down?
Pass.
He has to think about it, decides it's not the right time.
I really think winning the main event of the 2000 World Series of Poker it's clearly the highlight of my career. A very proud moment. It's pretty much everybody's dream. They have 10 times as many entrants nowadays as they had when I won it, and so it's basically 10 times as hard to win.
It's the FullTiltPoker.net $1 Million Cash Game. We're five-handed right now. Take a look at the leaderboard here. Chris Ferguson, our big winner, up almost $100,000. Tom Dwan up over $61,000. Patrick Antonius down $91,500. But our big loser is Andrew Feldman. The internet phenom is down $95,500. Now, if there's a player at this table right now who's going to have more of an advantage when we're playing five-handed, who do you think it'll be?
I'd probably have to put my money on Tom Dwan. Loves this kind of a situation. Short-handed, no-limit hold'em. Good stakes. I think Andrew Feldman's got quite a lot of experience playing short-handed hold'em as well, online though.
Yeah, Feldman. Well, he's got King-Jack offsuit. He's first to act, but remember, once again, we're five-handed.
Exactly. He's had to lower his his kind of hand values, and King Jack suddenly looks like quite a decent hand, five-handed.
He's raised it up. Ferguson gets out of the way.
6.
And Alan Cunningham is not a believer. He is going to re-raise up to 6,000.
Tom Dwan, actually with the best hand of King Queen, gets out the way.
Well, you got a raise and a re-raise.
And the re-raise is from Alan Cunningham. Stays with Andrew Feldman.
Pass.
Feldman gets out of the way, and it's a strong play by Cunningham. He actually had the worst hand. He had Queen Jack.
Yeah, both the other two hands had him totally dominated, but they didn't call, so he takes down the pot. That's nice for Alan.
I'm Alan Cunningham, and I have 5 World Series of Poker bracelets. I got started in poker just playing with my family and learning the game a little bit. We just played it at the kitchen table. A little bit later, I played it with some high school friends for a couple dollars. Finally, I decided to play in some of the Indian reservations in the U.S. There were some free roll tournaments at a local Indian casino. The buy-in was free, actually, and then there was a $10 rebuy, I believe. And for the $10 rebuy, you also got a free lunch. I began playing those every day, and I suddenly went on a streak of winning several, and ended up with a couple of grand. And I think from there, I really just kept moving on.
Buttons in front of Mike the Mouth Matusow. Alan Cunningham.
I guess we're about 100 short.
First to act.
Who didn't put
No,
in?
I guess not, if we just...
We're
just in the wrong place.
Okay.
Still a spare seat in seat 8. Ready for a new arrival at some point.
21.
And it didn't take very long with Tom Dwan to raise it up. 5 deuce offsuit. He's going to raise this one up.
Pass.
Matusow is going to call on the button with the weak ace.
Chris Ferguson in the big blind with King 4. He says no thank you.
Got heads up here, Dwan, Matusow.
Matusow with the best hand, but Tom Dwan with the impetus right now. And a little bit of for both players here.
Yeah, this could get really, really interesting. Tom Dwan with the open-ended straight draw. And Mike Matusow with top pair. Matusow also has the ace of diamonds. I'll tell you, the gin card is the ace. If an ace comes off, that's going to be the money card.
It certainly is. Give Mike Matusow aces and 7s and a straight for Tom Dwan. Looks like a re-raise to 12,000.
Matusow going to raise this up. He's got top pair, but his hand is vulnerable to any overpair.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Tom decides to play this.
Pot is now 21,300. It's 8,400 to call. If you're Dwan, how do you play this?
Well, he does have a couple of options here. He can flat call to try and improve and maybe beat a big hand. He's not going to get a lot of money if a 6 comes down, so I'm not actually that big of a fan of the flat call. What he could do, of course, is make the pressure play with a redraw. But he's just going to do the flat call.
Call.
He's going to call and see what happens here. Pot is now 29,700. I was going to say, if you're Dwan, what do you think Matusow has?
Well, he might think that his deuce is now a live flush draw.
But it's not, though, because Matusow has the ace of diamonds. Very interesting turn card. The king of diamonds changes some stuff now. Dwan needs an ace or a 6, but the 6 of diamonds is no good.
$16,000.
If Tom gives Mike
16.
a hand like 9s or 10s, he might think he can put pressure on with that king. And they've got enough chips in front of them that Tom might make a big, big replay here.
Yeah, Matusow bet 16,000 into 29.7. Just to refresh, Matusow started this pot with 138,000. Dwan, 160,000. I think it's just a matter of time for Dwan and Matusow to get tangled up in a pot.
That time may well be now. He's figuring out which cards could be good cards for him. Of course, he could be up against a set and he's never going to get him to lay it down. Could even have been up against a flush draw, which has just got there.
The dangerous thing is, if I'm Dwan, I'm putting Matusow on an overpair. I'm putting him on 9s, 10s, something like that. And the King of Diamonds is the ultimate scare card. I might try to use that.
And it's almost like Mike set him up for this with this bet, because it's barely over half the pot. But it might be hard to move Matusow off it if he's got, say, 10s with the 10 of diamonds. Might be what's going through Tom Dwan's head.
Well, everybody watching on, this pot is now up to $45,700, and it's $16,000 over to Tom Dwan.
So many options for Tom. He could do one of all three. Fold, call, or raise. He's reaching for his chips. And
oh, that's $16,000 there. It looks like he's going to raise, though.
he's making the pressure play.
Yeah, he's got a black chip in there. He's definitely raising it up there. And he is. He's going to make a big raise.
Mike going to have a look. See if the ace is the ace of diamonds.
And it looks like the raise is up to 29,500 more.
28.8.
It's actually 28.8 more back to Matusow.
Well, I can tell you one thing. If he flat calls, he could put himself in the opportunity to be bluffed out.
Mullen.
He makes a great re-raise all in here, Mike. I don't think he wants to flat call.
Oh, wow. Matusow moves all in. And Tom Dwan has to fold that, right? He does fold. He had to fold, though. He could be drawing dead.
Exactly. As it happens, he was still live.
7 deuce. Thought I was playing 7 deuce game.
Well, what a pot here for Mike.
I think I had the best hand.
That means we may get a little bit more noise from Mike the Mouth. He's up nearly $100,000. Eric Seidel's just raised it up.
I knew he had aces pre-flop. I was looking to flop something big. We were both playing pretty deep, and I flopped 2 pair.
And that is a great start for Mike Matusow.
I let out, and he raised me, and I put a pretty big re-raise in and got him to commit 90,000 with 1 pair.
I'm all in.
All in. And Seidel moves all in.
Cool.
Seidel moves
all in
in.
and a call.
Hold on a second.
This is going to be the biggest pot we have seen so far.
You want me to give you insurance?
They were offering me insurance. I didn't even know what insurance meant, but I would have took it if I could have.
What have you got insurance?
Hang on 1 second. All right, just go. Forget it.
One time.
Let's go. One time.
I even knew it. I kept yelling, I'm gonna lose, I'm gonna lose. 'Cause I was so negative at the time. 'Cause I used to just lose every hand I played in poker.
And the river's a 7. I cannot believe it.
My luck in poker. That's why I want to do something. You guys don't know how bad I run in poker.
It was pretty shattering, $154,000 pot, you know, where I'm like almost 3-to-1 favorite.
I got Eric Seidel to put in all his money with 1 pair, 75,000 on the flop. I flop top 2. I'm running 7s. I'm trying to get insurance. They go, "Are you crazy? You're such a huge favorite." And I said, "You don't know how bad I run in poker. I want to get insurance on this hand."
That one definitely hurt. That was really bad. That was the worst one I think I've ever took.
You guys just think I play bad.
But Mike,
I'm the unluckiest player in poker.
you
I told you guys how bad I run in poker. Nobody knows but me.
Well, 2 of the elder statesmen right now, Mike Matusow, one of them, Chris Ferguson, the other, are our 2 big winners. Ferguson up over $100,000, Matusow up over $98,000.
Just shows the online young guns have still got a little bit to learn when it comes to live poker.
Pass.
Well, we've got a raise here from Mike, and I'm pretty sure Chris Ferguson's going to play it. The 2 chip leaders, both of them with about 200,000 in front of each other, and Alan Cunningham with a hand too. And when it's 5-handed, you start to think your opponents don't have such strong hands, so suddenly these ace-jacks, even for a re-raise, might start seeming a little stronger.
Now it's ace-jack suited. The fact that it's suited, does that add anything to it?
It adds a little bit, but I think when it's a re-raise from Chris Ferguson, you just decide to get rid of it, and that's what he's done. Alan didn't even think about it. Possibly saved Alan Cunningham some money. If it had just gone round to these two in the blinds, we could have seen fireworks.
Welcome back. This certainly is not a game for the faint-hearted. The stakes currently wallet-bustingly high, and we'll hand you straight back to your commentators, Gary Jones and David Tuckman.
Last year I played real timid on this show because I was playing short bankroll. When you play with him, and him, timid, you got no shot.
I think Mike Matusow is happy that Patrick Antonius and Phil Ivey have taken a little bit of a break. How about pocket eights for Tom Dwan? Now this time Matusow decides not to call with the ace-6.
Well, he doesn't have the button anymore.
Andrew Feldman. Well, still waiting for the cards.
How many chips do you have? About, oh, you got 75 up there. So 100 or something.
88, roughly, 90 to start the hand, something like that.
Tom Dwan's got about 100,000 chips. Actually, 90,300 to be exact. Chris Ferguson wants to get a count. Chris Ferguson, by the way, the chip leader at the table with 205,000 chips. He's going to call from the blinds, and we're going to see this heads up. Chris Ferguson versus Tom durrrr Dwan.
King Queen for Chris.
10-3-9.
2 overcards for the 8s.
Now Tom Dwan is ahead right now on that flop, but Chris Ferguson's got a lot of outs.
Yeah, jacks, queens and kings all good for Chris.
Check.
Yeah.
Goes check, check. Bit of pot control here from Tom.
King.
Well, he might regret it.
I'm not sure if Chris Ferguson was going to go anywhere anyway. The overcards and the gut shot straight draw.
So the pot control could well have saved him.
Chris Ferguson now with top pair. He also has the bigger spade in his hand, the 3 spades out there. Tom Dwan drawing very light.
He does have the 8 of spades. Might keep him involved.
I don't think I opened one hand that I
And it does. Well, 11,000 in the pot. 6 on the end.
Yeah, the 6 of diamond doesn't really change anything.
Seat open.
Pretty good card for Chris.
And this is the question now, if you're Chris Ferguson, do you bet out as a nice value bet? Or with your image, can you get paid more? Can you get more value out of checking and letting your opponent bluff?
Well, if he...
7.
It really depends on what he gives Tom Dwan. If Tom's calling with the ace of spades, he might feel he can still check the end. He doesn't even have to make a steal bet. I think he's done right. I think he has to bet it.
Well, he's bet 7,000 into an $11,000 pot. Tom Dwan has to decide.
Pass.
There's Gus Hansen, the Great Dane, waiting in the wings, possibly going to join this game. So that should liven up things.
Well, he knows there's a seat available in number 8. I think he's come to take it.
Hey, Gus.
Well, that should liven up things. And you know a few things about Gus Hansen, the Great Dane?
Yeah, I played with him a little bit before. Very, very strong player, both in the tournament circuit and in cash games.
You know, I've been talking to myself since noon.
Our tournament director, Barry Mundy, here, just giving him the chips. I think he's likely to be starting off with the 100,000.
Trying to talk, trying to have conversations at the table with Alan, Chris, Andrew, he's very quiet, Patrick, Ivey, and Tom. Hellmuth chickened out of showing up, so.
How is the dynamic of this game going to change now that Gus Hansen's here?
Well, we've got a couple of walkers with Phil Ivey and Patrick Antonius, and they probably felt that it was a good opportunity for them to mix it up, maybe steal a few pots that they might not have been able to do before. But Gus Hansen could be the new table policeman. He could be looking them up, keeping them honest. It could be interesting. It depends on how soon he kind of finds his rhythm and whether he decides to try and take control of this pot. Just confirming, that's my 100,000. I'm going to sign for it.
You know, the greatest Hold'em player in the world didn't want to show up and play in this lineup. especially when he knew you were coming. I think that scared
That
him
will
up.
scare a lot of people.
I think that did it. I told him you were coming too. That might have been the
That's the
finish.
last round?
Oh, it's
In
a
that
nice
case, I
round.
fold.
Pass.
So we have a live straddle.
And
from
Gus
Tom
Hansen,
Dwan.
yeah, Gus Hansen in the big blind here. Tom Dwan has live straddled.
36 total.
So Gus decides to put the pressure onto Tom Dwan. That's a pretty good hand for the live straddle.
Good morning, Durr.
He might even be tempted by do something a little bit saucy here with a re-raise, because he knows that Gus is quite likely to put the pressure on the live straddle. But he's got position, might want to just see the flop,
Cool.
Patrick says it was
and that's what he's decided to do.
Now he is going to call this. Pot is now $8,200. Gus Hansen out of position with the better hand.
Jack 9-7.
And he still has the best of it. Flop Jack 9-7. Couple of spades out there. Gus Hansen with the ace of spades.
Still, I don't think he's going to like the flop much. It's pretty disgusting for his hand.
Check.
Now Dwan with overcards and the gut shot straight draw. A 10, a king, or a queen will do it for him.
5.
Goes check, check. Well, now it might make a difference. The third spade comes out. It's the 5 of spades. Gus Hansen with the ace of spades in his hand.
Also a straight draw as well. Can picked up an 8 for a straight. This might give him the courage to make the bet.
Check.
Or check call.
Check.
He goes check, check.
4.
4, well, they've all missed. Interesting to know which one of them thinks they've got the most showdown value. They both decide to check. The ace going to win this one. Welcome to the table, Gus.
I was about to say, welcome to the party.
I'm Gus Hansen. I'm a professional poker player for 10 years now. Before I started playing poker, I was a professional backgammon player for like 5-6 years. A couple of friends of mine played a lot of poker, and it seemed like an interesting game. A lot of big tournaments, a lot of money, a lot of action. So I decided to give it a try, and now we're here. Winning the Aussie Millions was a big accomplishment. That was a big tournament, 750 players. Pretty happy with the end result of that. Just being a professional gambler for 15, 16 years, and I'm still around, I think is a pretty nice accomplishment.
Well, just that we got Gus Hansen to the table. Tom Dwan decided to buy in for a little bit more. He had dipped down to about $81,000. He figured that wasn't enough, so he bought in for another $100,000. He's now up to $181,000, but he's down 19 for the day.
38.
Well, we had another live straddle of 1,200. This time from Mike Matusow. And that's made Andrew Feldman make a larger raise. And it's Alan Cunningham with a big hand on the button.
Cool.
Just flat calling now with the ace-queen, 6-handed.
This is interesting. This pot is getting big already. Feldman raised up to 4,000. Cunningham calls on the button with the ace-queen. Oh, wow. And Tom Dwan. Now, this is a perfect spot for a squeeze play, isn't it?
Yeah, looks like it could be a squeeze play if he does decide to re-raise. Mike Matusow with another ace behind him.
Now, Tom Dwan out of position with the ace-king. How do you want to play this? You've got a raise and a call.
He's also just bought in, so he's sitting very deep. The other players in the pot, only Matusow really has got any more than him. He'd probably be quite pleased to get it heads up against one of them with as much of the money in there before the flop as possible.
Well, he's got them all dominated. Feldman with a king, a weaker king, and Matusow and Cunningham with weaker aces. The flop's likely to come out all rags.
Well, there you go. There's the percentages. Tom Dwan, almost a 40% favourite to win the pot, which four-handed is pretty good.
47
Well, one thing for sure, Tom Dwan not afraid to put the chips in the pot. This looks like a squeeze play. He's probably hoping his opponents think it's a squeeze play. He's re-raised up to 47,000. It's a huge overbet.
I think that's why he's done it. It's he doesn't want to be out of position with this kind of hand when the flop comes down if he doesn't connect. The big question here is, what does Alan Cunningham do? It looks like a squeeze play. He's only really dominated by ace-king, he's feeling. Of course, there could be kings or aces or even queens. But Tom Dwan's got such a large range of hands that he could do this. It could just be a squeeze play.
And of course, when you start thinking about the hand ranges that Tom Dwan could have, and you go, okay, well, he probably doesn't have aces or kings. Would he bet that large? And you go, well, I guess he could have queens, he could have ace-king, but he could also have nothing at all.
I'll go all in.
Well, he said he's going to go all in.
So all in.
Cool.
And Tom calls. He's not going to like it when he sees it, Alan Cunningham.
Yeah, the wince. He's not happy at all, and he's in bad shape. He's about a 3-to-1 dog.
King 10.
592.
There's the flop, 9-5 deuce. Not much there for Cunningham at all. He needs a queen, or he is going to go felt.
King 10.
I was calling you.
Pot is $145,000.
A 10's gonna come.
Here comes the turn.
Turn is the 10 of diamonds.
He knows the 10 was coming.
That doesn't change anything.
Still only a queen for Alan. Matusow had ace-9. He would have gone in front on the turn, and a king 10 hits on the turn.
And the river's a 10 as well.
Why don't I go with my gut?
So Alan Cunningham loses $70,000 in that pot. Good time to pull up for Tom Dwan. Not that it really mattered. I think he actually had Alan Cunningham covered.
Perfect setup played out by Tom Dwan. I mean, I don't think Alan Cunningham makes that call or makes that move against any other player except maybe Tom Dwan at this table.
Quite possibly.
I was scared of him having aces. I wasn't worried about him.
Kind of a bit of a lost opportunity, really, for Alan. He had a bit of a chance if he'd have re-raised on the button. If Tom Dwan then pushes against him, he could have got away from it.
I would have played
It's more fun that way, you know? Just
6 players at the poker table, including some of the biggest names in poker: Gus Hansen, Alan Cunningham, Chris Ferguson, Tom Dwan, Mike Matusow, and Andrew Feldman. Alan Cunningham now down $100,000. He has rebought for another $100,000.
We're on camera. He's probably coming here tonight.
Ferguson not going to play. Alan Cunningham in there with the ace, jack of hearts, and he is going to play. He makes it 2,000.
Pass.
Now, he just lost a big pot, and a lot of players might think, okay, just have to lose a big pot, maybe you're tilting. I doubt Alan Cunningham does tilt.
Well, Tom Dwan with ace-king against him again. It's the very next hand. Can't imagine Mike's going to be involved for these fireworks.
No, Mike is as good as out as this one. Tom Dwan, though, is going to re-raise it.
7-7.
Matusow does fold, and it's back to Cunningham, and he's got to wonder, is this guy just picking on me now, or does he have it again? I mean, it couldn't have worked out any better for Tom Dwan.
No, exactly.
Cool.
Well, he calls. Not going to want to see an ace, not unless it includes a jack on the board. Here comes the flop.
6-6-6.
It's
a devil's hand.
6-6-6 on the board. Changes nothing, apart from a 6 becomes a split pot, as does an ace.
Pot is 16,700. Something very, very spooky about that flop. And if you're Tom Dwan, if you think you had the best hand pre-flop, obviously you're loving your hand now, right?
It's true, but if you're up against a pocket pair, you've got less chances to improve.
8-6.
The bet is 8,600. Counting out the chat, the call.
It looks like he's going to float one off here. Either A, he thinks he has the best hand, or maybe he thinks he can take it away on the turn.
Well, we're about to find out.
Pot
Here
now,
comes our turn.
Yeah, pot is now 33,900. Well,
wow.
Jackpot for Cunningham. He was drawing very slim. Has to love that, though.
Check.
Now it's Tom Dwan who's desperate for a king. 6 would still be a split pot.
Although Dwan, when he gets called by Cunningham on the flop, does he think he's behind?
Quite possibly. It's gone check, check.
Check.
Oh.
Well, now it could look like it's going to be a chop pot.
Now
that could have counterfeited Alan Cunningham's hand if he's calling him down with a hand like pocket 8s. So this could be a bet and a call. That could be the perfect card in the deck for Alan Cunningham. Maybe you could get 20,000 out of him here.
Well, how much would he call? I mean, obviously Tom Dwan knows he's only calling to win half the pot.
Of course.
So how much would you call?
29.
Well, he's bet 29.
So Tom Dwan knows it's 29,000. It's 29,000 for me to win 17. Tom Dwan cannot beat the board. That's what he's playing. It's 29,000.
Well, his check on the turn could end up being an absolute peach of a check. I don't think he was ever going to get any more money unless this jack came.
I mean, if you're in Tom Dwan's spot, now you obviously can see the cards. Do you make this call? I mean,
personally, I think I do, because I think Alan's such a good player that he might put the pressure on with this kind of a bet. I might fancy that 29,000 is going to win the pot, you know, 25%, 30% of the time.
I mean, you start thinking of what hands are you actually losing to?
Exactly. That's the point. That's why he has to make the percentage call.
Jack.
He doesn't like it. He knows. He's even said he's got the jack.
Oh, Tom Dwan's going to hate what he sees.
He knows how unlucky he's been in this pot.
Oh. Wow, what a hand.
Who's winning all the money, Mikey?
I mean, you start thinking about what hands Tom Dwan actually loses to, and you go, okay, well, I lose to queens, kings, aces, and
Or a
some sort of a
6.
jack or a 6, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's why he has to make the percentage call. If you think Alan Cunningham's going to make that bet more often than not in that spot, which I think he is, because it is a good percentage bet, I think he has to make the call. And back at the table here, we have Phil Ivey rejoining.
Take a look at our leaderboard here. Things have been shaken up just a little bit. Chris Ferguson on top of it, though, with $111,000. Mike Matusow up $96,000. Phil Ivey only up $22,000 now. And we've got a couple of big losers. Alan Cunningham down $53,000 despite winning that hand. Patrick Antonius down nearly $100,000. And Andrew Feldman is down over $100,000. Gus Hansen watching on as the dealer doles out the cards. Button in front of Phil Ivey. Phil Ivey, by the way, has bought in for another $100,000. Wants to make sure that he has the table covered. He's got $221,000 in front of him, and he does indeed have the table covered. Patrick Antonius, by the way, sitting out, has over $300,000. And Gus Hansen going to raise this up with Kojak. Now Matusow in the cutoff seat with ace-10 suited. Obviously a couple of different ways you can play this hand.
I think he's likely to call.
You are correct, sir. The call is exactly what he did. Phil Ivey with the 8-5. I'm not even going to begin to guess what Phil Ivey does.
That's probably a safe thing.
Well, Phil Ivey decides to fold. Andrew Feldman folds. Chris Ferguson. Going to get out of the way. He tosses his cards in the muck.
Gus with the impetus. Mike with the better hand and the position. These two to the flop.
Pot is 6,000, and here's the flop. 8, 10, 7, all spades out there. Neither player with a spade.
But top pair for Mike Matusow. Well, Alan's raised twice. Sorry, Gus Hansen's raised twice. And both times it's come down with 3 of a suit. And both times he hasn't had the suit necessary to carry on. He checks and folds.
Yeah, Gus playing aggressively pre-flop, but slowing down post-flop.
Coming to the old Gus, it always fires. You said he's been playing better.
I think I probably did have a couple of outs, though.
I don't like that check fold, buddy. It really changes the way I'm gonna have to play against you today.
Good luck.
Mike, the heart Gus the Nit. It had to change sooner or later.
Mike the Heart.
Gus Hansen first to act. He's under the gun. Phil Ivey, by the way, has bought in for an additional $100,000. Now has the table covered. Has $221,000 in front of him. And Gus Hansen with the jokers. He's going to raise this up.
Oh. Wow. Tom Dwan with 2 kings behind him.
And when people ask, is it better to be tight or loose? I'll tell you one thing, Tom Dwan gets paid off more with kings than anybody else at this table.
Yeah, that much is true. Well, pair of jacks, pair of kings. Andrew Feldman come in here with the weak ace. No, he's out the way. 7-6 for Chris. He passes. Wow! I can't believe there's 2 people out there with kings and we're still only seeing the flat call before the flop. Unbelievable.
Well, they can't improve their hand. Gus Hansen can.
He's the one that needs to at the moment.
Oh, wow, and it's a dangerous flop for Gus Hansen. Now,
The only curious. Yeah, someone could get away from this because there's an open pair board and there's likely to be so much action. This could get huge.
It's the only thing that might save Gus Hansen. If it was just Gus Hansen, Tom Dwan, Hansen could be in a lot of trouble. Now, Tom Dwan can actually win this hand with running spades.
Yeah, so Alan Cunningham right now can only split the pot. He can't actually win it all to himself.
And of course, Gus Hansen can win with a jack.
5,600 a bet.
And you wonder, do all 3 of these players actually think they have the best hand?
I'm pretty sure all 3 of them do, at least right now. It might change if the action goes up.
Well, you get a bet from Dwan, a call from Alan Cunningham. And how does Gus Hansen play this?
Well, it looks like he wants to call as well.
Well, is he alarmed by the player next to the player to his right? Very well respected. Is he alarmed by that call?
I don't think so. I still think that he might make a raise, even though he's only counted out a call bet. Well, he's moved all in here.
All in?
Wow. Well, now what do they do?
Gus Hansen moves all in here. I just don't understand the play at all. He moves all in for what basically is $97,000. Well, it's $91,500. I can't see him get. There's no way Tom Dwan and Alan Cunningham are both going to fold.
I wouldn't have thought so, but it's a very strange play. Looks like he's only going to get a call from someone who's got him beat. He's definitely not going to get a call from a 9, that much is certain. Maybe with an ace flush draw. But then how much do you like your hand anyway if he's got 2 overcards as well?
Tom Dwan has got to think this one through, but
they both have to think this one through. I tell you what, if he gets them both to fold, it'd be a miracle.
There's no way both players are going to fold. When Tom Dwan calls this, though, does Alan Cunningham overcall?
I think that's the problem.
And that's exactly what happened. Tom Dwan does call, Alan Cunningham folds. And this pot is now over $200,000. It's the biggest pot of the $1 million cash game. And Gus Hansen needs a jack, and only a jack.
You never, like you just said, I'm never going to play it like that.
Well, I do want a picture card.
Well, not this game.
Deuce of hearts on the turn, 1 card. Gus Hansen with only a 5% chance of winning this pot. He needs a jack and only a jack.
It was a picture card.
And the Great Dane goes up in flames. Queen of Hearts on the river, and Tom Dwan wins $207,000. Gus Hansen felt it just like that.
Gus, obviously a late comer to the table, but quite an explosive impact when you did actually make it. Talk us through the 2 jacks.
Well, I'd rather forget the 2 jacks. Obviously, I lost my. I bought in for 100,000. I lost my buy-in there in the first round. Basically, I opened in first position. This time I have 2 jacks. Tom Dwan calls, which doesn't mean too much. He can have a 7-6 suited. He can have an ace-5. He can have lots of things. Alan Cunningham calls in the blind. Flop comes 9-4-4 with 2 spades. I decided to check this one. Durrrr bet. Alan Cunningham called. And basically, I'm not going to fold my 2 jacks on the 9-4-4 board. And I decided, you know what? I don't want to see a spade on the turn. I think there's a very good chance my 2 jacks are ahead. So I just chipped for 90,000 more. Durrrr called, And Alan Cunningham thought for a while and showed 2 kings and folded. So obviously I was happy he folded 2 kings, but I wasn't too happy when durrrr turned over the 2 other kings. That was a decision I made at the table. Sometimes it's right, sometimes it's wrong. Here it was obviously wrong. I was up against 2 guys who both slow played kings before the flop. I didn't know that, and they caught me off guard.
Well, we have certainly had some heart-in-your-mouth poker here at the FullTiltPoker.net $1 million cash game. Plenty more of the same guaranteed next time. I hope you'll join us then. But from all the team, it's bye for now.